Hi everyone! It's so good to see all of you here at our live event, which is our global virtual book club. So we have quite a lot of people logging in and tuning in right now. I know it's Thursday over there in the US, so really happy to have our US friends joining us here as well. It's in the evening your time. So let's go with a round of introductions first. Carmen, my co-host, I'll let you introduce Tayo, and then I will introduce Hai to the rest.
Yes, for those who don't know me, I'm Carmen Marsh. I'm the CEO of Intelligenza and the founder of 100 Women, 100 Days Cybersecurity Career Accelerator and Cybersecurity Woman of the Year Awards. And I am super excited to introduce Kaya Rockson as well. He is probably one of the best storytellers, the best content developer that exists in social media. So I'm truly happy to have you on the show, Tayo. We'll ask you a little question, and I know you've got a lot of great stuff to share. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and very high praise. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we spoke yesterday, and after Carmen just was exuding so much praise to Tayo, I was busy checking him out on TEDx and all the different talks. And I really love the topics you shared about our differences, finding commonalities in our differences. Yeah. Very inspiring.
Yeah, maybe you can give a little background, a little more. I didn't give a lot. I just praised you how good you are, but if you want to just give us a little bit more.
Do you want me to go? Okay. Yeah, I thought we were introduced. All right, fine. So it's a pleasure to be on here. Thank you so much. The lovely co-hosts have been kind to talk about what I do, but I define myself as a storyteller, a consultant, and a professional in the field of cultural competency. So in the field of cultural competency, I essentially help individuals and organizations understand how to connect to themselves, to each other, and to different backgrounds and people from different cultures. And personally, it started from my background as a Nigerian who grew up in 5 countries and 4 continents. And, as a kid, when you're going from identity crisis to finding yourself, you learn a lot about nuance and existing. And that led to me sharing a lot of my stories online, which led to me building a platform out of that and showing people how to do that in businesses, in schools, as well as in media platforms. So my whole goal is to dismantle systems of oppression that exist around us, but also to help people feel the full spectrum of their humanities. So that's the summary of what I do. Wow. Yeah.
Very exciting. I'm really psyched to hear your unique perspective, especially when we will be talking about real issues that we are facing in our cybersecurity industry. And hearing your experience from a different lens will be really insightful. So we'll get to that in a bit. But in the meantime, also want to introduce Hai Tran. So I know Hai from a while back. And for those who are familiar with, I'm looking for my book actually, the Cyber Risk Leaders book. Both Carmen and Hai are in the book. They have shared a lot of good insights. And Hai has been he has a lot of experience. He was with the police force, WA police force, that's in Perth, Australia, as the Chief Information Security Officer for the last 5 years. And prior to that, he has a lot of extensive experience. And he's currently the CEO of the Australia Cyber Collaboration Center. And he already, just in the first few weeks in his role, he has been busy attending media conferences, speaking to the Premier. He has lots of good stories to share as well. Hi, I'll let you introduce yourself if you have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, great. Well, look, I'm so excited to be back in South Australia again. The cyber community in South Australia is absolutely amazing. There's so much passion and energy. And this morning I was actually at the Premier's Economic Advisory Board, speaking to boards and chief execs of some of the large corporations in South Australia. And it was just so amazing to have a willing and able audience who are actually excited to hear about cybersecurity. It is something that, I think as most cybersecurity professionals would know, trying to get excitement out of senior execs about cyber has been difficult. And look, it's been fantastic so far. I've been here for 4 weeks. I literally, one day I was a member of the Australian Federal, a member of the West Australian Police Force as their CISO, and the next day I'm in Adelaide. So look, it's an amazing journey, and you're talking about storytelling. I think it's very valid. I think we We learn from stories, and I think traditionally humans have passed on information from generation to generation through stories, and also the concept of diversity building some strength in core business is a great talk. So I'm looking forward to talking more about that today.
Oh, beautiful. Thanks a lot, Hai. And thanks, everyone. So I realized I haven't introduced myself. So my name is Carmen Tan, and I am the author of Cyber Risk Leaders. I'm also the executive advisor at an Australian and Singapore cybersecurity consulting firm, and I work very closely with the C-suite and the CISOs in helping them bridge their gaps with the business. So Carmen and I have been doing this Cyber Risk Leaders book club for the last few months already, and we've had quite a lot of episodes. And met many interesting guests from all over the world. So if you guys have missed out, feel free to catch up to the episodes. They are actually recorded and they will be on YouTube as well. So you can look for us on the Cyber Risk Meetup YouTube channel or even on podcast. So without further ado, we've been talking a lot about stories, right? And in actually one of the chapter, Carmen was reminding me about chapter 10, CISO and the business. And we actually focus a lot about the art of storytelling. And at the end of the day, stories are about people, it's about real lives, and we have to describe them so people can understand and can relate better. So maybe I'll just kick it off and find out from Hai. I know you have lots of stories to share. What are the different ways you have gone about to articulate this message a lot more effectively to our industry?
I wanted to add something also. I mean, it just beside telling stories, we talk about this is the book for CISOs, right? So CISO have to be really good storytellers. Right.
Yeah.
And so, Hai, if you can kind of really go into a little more details why that's important for CISO to be a good storyteller.
I don't want to stereotype cyber people, but generally we're a geek. We come from the IT community. We're passionate about IT, and I think the reason why we've become cyber professionals is we want to make sure our toys, our cyber, our tools, our assets, our gaming consoles are protected, right? I mean, ultimately, cyber is about ensuring that you can continue to use your cyber assets. So, look, one of the great things about working in cyber is that once you understand that cyber is about enabling business and enabling the use of IT, you actually get a lot of experience across the business. Whether it's financial systems, marketing systems, the HR systems. And so I think a lot of the people who don't work in IT, they find it hard to relate to IT. They do find that IT and cyber are very confusing areas, and we need to engage people in the language they understand. Just as we talk to IT people in terms they understand, we need to actually be able to communicate to the business as a whole in ways they can understand. And storytelling is a great way to do so. And I think most recently I presented to about 15 to 20 CEOs of South Australia's largest corporations. It was hosted by the Premier of South Australia, and he told some really great stories. But one speaker told us a story about her business in South Australia being compromised by ransomware, by cryptocurrency. And she told a story where she thought she was prepared for a cyber attack. She thought that it was an IT problem, but the reality was that when her business was crippled by a cyber attack or by a crypto locker, her business came to a grinding halt. They spent 24/7 for about a week restoring ICT systems. Fortunately for them, they were insured against the risk, but they still fixed the problems that they were out of business effectively for a week. And they had to bring in people who used to work for their companies. She brought them in from other companies to actually come back and help. Now the way that she communicated her story was in a way that other CEOs could actually understand. There's one thing as CISO saying this could happen to you, but when another CEO actually says this is what happened to me, and I didn't believe it was going to happen, it really gets them nervous, and a lot of the CEOs have never heard of what's called the Essential 8. The ACE, the Australian Cybersecurity Centre's essential controls for mitigating cyber risk, because they just assumed it was an IT problem. And how I actually helped reinforce that message was I told a story about when was the last time your organisation conducted a fire drill? And again, most organisations in Australia would do that at least on an annual basis. So we all hear the alarm, we all walk down the fire stairs, the fire wardens do their thing, and people can relate to that. So the next question I asked was, when was the last time you shut down your IT systems and actually put into effect your business continuity plan? And the room was like, oh, we've never done that before. When was the last time we had a fire in your building? Well, we've never had one before, but yet we still do fire drills. But we all know these days that we're under cyber attack, and we do have people we know firsthand who've actually had compromises, credit card fraud, email phishing attacks. And in fact, about 5 minutes ago, I received a robocall saying that I was under investigation from the Department of Homeland Affairs. I had a warrant against me. I pressed 1 to speak to an investigator, and they asked my name, and they started asking me personal questions. That happened to me 5 minutes ago, and that's a real story. So that's important to actually bring it to light that this might actually happen to you, it will happen to you, rather than it could happen to you.
That's a very good point. And if you think about it, a lot of things when you are in a position in a company where you do have to convey importance of either it's an incident or you need to get a buy-in, from an executive about purchase, about the direction the company's going. Be good at the focused, core, scripted story, right? That's the only way. And it is important in any field, but it is super important in cybersecurity as well.
Right.
But there is no one better that I know that can write stories the way that Tayo can. And so I want to give you an opportunity to just tell us a little bit more about how you define, how do you narrow, how do you focus your message so it's very concise and it appeals to your audience, right? It has the emotional connections.
So thank you once again. I feel like I will always be saying that. I really appreciate that. For me, like everyone said here, stories are the way we make sense of the world. They're how we get messages across. They're how we influence people for the better. They're how we date. Really, everybody's telling a story, whether they realize it or not. And so when people are always saying, I'm not a good storyteller, I always say, you tell stories every time, whether you're aware of it or not. But a great story, and what I always think about before any story is how to engage imagination, senses, and emotions, right? Imagination, senses, emotions. How am I going to think of what you're hearing, seeing, feeling? Or how am I going to tap into your emotions? And a lot of what I do, I'm helping people to be seen, heard, and understood for who they really are, right? That's a lot of what diversity, equity, and inclusion is. And as corny as I am, I always like to break things down into acronyms. So I'm going to use the acronym of STORY to tell you how to tell a story. So S is state your take. And I'm going to explain all this in depth. T is tie the characters and world together. O is to organize your thoughts. R is to revise. Y is to yield. S is to state your take. Tie is to tie the characters. T rather is to tie the characters and world together. O is to organize your thoughts. R is to revise, and Y is to yield. So how do you state your take? Essentially, what your take is what's your opinions. What do you think of something? And your take should highlight a problem, solve a problem, improve something, explain something, discuss a curiosity, entertain, right? And so someone could say the coronavirus is this. I believe cybersecurity is, that's your take, that's the opinion, right? That's what you have. And whenever you're thinking of a story, you're thinking about making sure it has a point. Before I put out a tweet or anything in a message, I know what my intended take is or what I'm trying to communicate. It might not always be the result, but I know that at least I'm trying to say something or at least invite a conversation to something. And so what is your take, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, I was saying it's really good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Keep going.
And then okay. And then the thing about your take is you want to know whether it has a resolution. Sometimes it might not have a resolution, right? Sometimes you might say something like, I wonder what the solution is for global conflict, right? That is a take. I have an hypothesis, but it doesn't have a resolution. Knowing if your take has a resolution or not is going to guide how you tell that story. If it doesn't have a resolution, you're going to think about it from an investigative point of view. And so you're going to start asking more questions and inviting more dialogue. If you do believe it has a take and you're coming at it from a different perspective, you're probably going to come at it from more of an expertise point of view and a lecturer point of view, as opposed to facilitating point of view. And so you're teaching people a new idea. For example, I'm telling you all how to tell a story because I am a storyteller and I've written and told stories from different points of view. So I know the resolution of this is to try and give you all tools to understand how to tell a story in the end. And then make sure your solution does a few things. You're all in different businesses, right? So does your solution cut time? Does it save money? Does it add value? Does it add a skill set? Does it make someone feel more productive? I imagine this that I'm saying here is going to add value, a skill set, and potentially help you save money and cut time if you know how to communicate to your CEO, boss, clients, yourself, or an audience. It might give you more of an ability to become more productive. Well, that idea of making sure your solution cuts time or saves money or adds value or adds a skill set or makes someone feel more productive. It doesn't have to be all of them, but any combination of those helps. I mean, and I want to highlight examples of how stories are told everywhere. And once you start thinking of stories this way, you're going to see them everywhere. Whenever you see State Farm, what, like a good neighbor, State Farm is here. That's the jingle. They're basically telling you they're friendly like a neighbor. They're going to be there. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more in your car insurance. Right? It's 15% or more, 15% or more. That's the thing. It's the 15 minutes. We do it in little time, cut time, 15% or more. We're cutting you money. And hey, we're not like the other ones. And Apple, think different, right? All these things. That's one way to think about how things are told, and marketers do it all the time. Now, if you want to build and develop this skill set of understanding how to solve a problem and why every day, is I always encourage my clients when I go through my storytelling workshop to every day find, maybe if it's too ambitious, at least find one problem you can solve every day and why. But for my more ambitious clients, I say list 10 ways you can solve a problem. This could be as simple as why there's traffic in New York City, or why my son doesn't listen to me when I say something, or why books don't sell. Just anything you're highlighting, or why someone in a reality show you're watching is not doing, just something like that. And then another way to build a skill set is to be able to describe why you like what you like, why you dislike what you dislike, and think about your inner child. My career is essentially based on a conversation to my inner child. I didn't feel enough. I didn't feel like, I was quite enough of anything, Black enough, this enough, Nigerian enough, whatever enough. And out of uncovering those past traumas, of figuring that out, I started to really connect to what that side was. I was like, oh, what if other people feel this way? And I told them a story that allowed them to feel more than that. What would that look like? And that was, I came at it from an investigative point backwards, and it was for me, I said my career is as much personal as it is professional. As I started to do that, I started to realize that a lot of the world is that way. There are many people who suppress parts of their identities because of a certain standard that we've ascribed, and those things look different for many people. So understand why you like what you like, why you dislike what you dislike. If you want to get more ambitious, start getting into 10 ways you can solve a problem. And those type of things. And then again, it's really about describing how you feel. So who are your inspirations and your influences? Why do you like them? And what feelings do they invoke in you? You think about comedians and storytellers, they're very good at drawing parallels, metaphors, similes, all these things. And so if I'm able to talk about something from my inner child or talk about feelings that I feel, I can say, yeah, getting, dumped for the 7th time feels like that tire that punctured, that got punctured on my way to Nevada. Have you ever been to Nevada? Nevada, that little turnpike that gets over there, it's like, there's that little one bump. You go over there and you're like, oh, I hope my car doesn't get, it's just a little bit of ability to tie something to someone's emotion and imagery. Or have you seen Friday, the Friday movie, or Save the Last Dance? There was that scene. You're able to connect to those things because you're practicing these things, and it's just a subtle shift in something like that. And the big one right now is connecting. If you're into superheroes, Avengers, the Endgame, Thanos snap, half the world escapes. This feels eerily similar with the COVID-19 or Contagion, which is a horror film, which is very similar to what's happening. So all these subtle things is very key. And even if you don't have those movie pop culture references, just saying, how many mothers out there, how many brothers out there, don't you know that I'm feeling when your kid is saying something you wish they understood? That's how this feels. So understanding that ability is very key, and it's relatable. It's drawing that emotions. But
Yeah.
to me, yeah. But to me,
No, I like that because you have just had a lot of practical
I just got
insight.
that I'm saying something that
I think people should be taking notes, and it is true. It's just about sometimes you tweak it, right? Just even about solving problems, training yourself to solve problems. You start with small, and then like you consistently have that mindset and a different way of thinking and looking at problems, and then it's ingrained in you to come up with solutions. But how do you actually articulate that and all that? And bit by bit, you train yourself. So that's really, really good. Carmen, you have a topic to talk about on chapter 11 as well. Do you want to?
Yes, actually, this was kind of, I was just going to say that all the things that you said, it requires us to know ourselves, right? Because we connect that, right? If we know ourselves and how we feel, then we're better at telling others what it is. So I think it's knowing yourself, be self-aware, right? And then the second is actually knowing your audience, right? That's another thing.
Yeah.
Quote about the Sanju, everyone knows about the art of war, about knowing your enemy. You need to know yourself, and then you will not fear the result of 100 battles, which was actually quoted in chapter 11 as well. And yeah, it leads it very nicely to the next topic.
That's exactly, and that's there was something that I did want to read that Theo Nisiokas actually wrote. If we really haven't been reading out of your book much, but I think this is really important because that was actually his quote that he put in from The Art of War. But also he says another thing, because this is the book for CISOs, right? So what he said was, being a good CISO means you must really understand and accept your strengths and weaknesses. If you understand your strengths, you would know how to use them to successfully accomplish your role. And nobody is good at everything, right? That's another thing. When you're building your cybersecurity team, we talked about that yesterday, right? How important that is, knowing what you're good at, what your strengths are, so then you can hire people that actually fill those gaps in knowledge that you have. So maybe you can kind of give us more thoughts on that, Hai.
Yeah, sure. Listening to Tayo, he's an amazing speaker, and if we can train all cybersecurity professionals to speak like Tayo and tell the stories about cyber like Tayo, we can also get far. Because I think the biggest challenge in cyber is actually communicating the message that cyber is everyone. It's not everyone's responsibility, but it is a global issue. It is a business issue, and we all need to take some level of responsibility for it. And look, I still remember doing my first year of university, and everyone who did a business degree studied accounting 101. It didn't matter whether you were going to be an accountant or a marketing person or a HR manager. It's accounting 101. And once we can get everyone at high school, even at primary school, understand the cyber, it has real world implications, and again, having people like Tayo actually deliver stories that can get more cyber professionals doing that, we're in a much better place. I think the other thing is also diversity. Now, we're all different, and we all come from different cultural backgrounds, and there's men and there's women, and we all think differently. And I think the great thing about having a diverse team is you think differently. And if we're having a team, a football team that's all goalies, we're not going to be a very successful football team. As is in cyber, it's such a huge field, and we need to communicate at all levels with all different types of people. And I'm actually, when people ask me, what are you most proud of in your career? It isn't anything actually tangible. It's actually that I've had the pleasure of working in two large organisations where women have actually formed half of my team or more. That at both WA Police and at Curtin University, I had people in my team that represented 5 different continents from about 7 different countries, all in one team. And now we all thought differently. We all had disagreements about how things could or should be, but those discussions about thinking differently actually resulted in the best solution after all aspects and all options were considered. So I think it is very easy in IT to have a team dominated by men. It's a very male-dominated industry, same as cyber. But I certainly have actually seen the benefits of actually having more women in cyber, more diversity in cyber, because it is everyone has a part to play in cyber. And if we're actually engaging all people from all communities, we're actually missing a lot of opportunities to tell stories that people understand and can relate to.
I agree.
Yeah, I was just going to say, back to talking about the differences, right? That recognizing our differences, and I think I'm going to take the conversation to Ty again, because we started off talking about the knowing ourselves and our differences, right? And what our strengths and weaknesses are. So your book is all about that. So do you want to give us a little bit of a snippet?
This book is for anyone who is interested in communicating effectively across cultures. So that spans across several, institutes. And the reason I wrote this book, and I called it "Use Your Difference to Make a Difference," is not only because "Use Your Difference to Make a Difference" is my mission statement, but I feel like we have a very weird relationship with anything that's different. I think when we think about things that are different, it isn't often seen in a positive light. And a lot of times people get uncomfortable with that relationship rather. And so I wanted to write a book that gave people a skill set to understand how to interact with things that they might not be used to, but also simultaneously give individuals the confidence to embrace what's unique about them. Within a few minutes of knowing me, you probably see that I'm very much a walking contradiction. And I know I unfortunately had Charmaine listen to a lot of my bad jokes before we started, but I'm a very corny person in general, and which is often contradiction to what people always think. But I always bring all those aspects to myself. I love superheroes. I will bring that in an example. I brought an example. I do all these things, but I bring all those aspects to myself, because that doesn't mean I'm less competent at any of that. And in the book, I go through 3 ways that you can effectively work through your self-awareness to identify gaps you need to improve on, and then go into institutions to dismantle those systems of oppression and create more access for people from different backgrounds, and then how to open dialogue with people you have different values with. You're not going to think the same way other people think, so how can you then open that dialogue? So that's what the book is about, and it's called "Use Your Difference to Make a Difference." It makes great gifts, book clubs, anything. And I feel like there's something happening in the world that's giving a lot of people time to read right now. So you just might check it out. Yeah. It's called "Use Your Difference to Make a Difference." That's the name of the book.
Yes, awesome. So where can people go get your book?
Anywhere, Amazon, anywhere books. It's on Audible, it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, anywhere books, yeah, Kindle, whatever you prefer to read, it's there. It's available, and it's in all the formats. So,
yeah. Very cool.
Lovely. Get my hands on one of those.
Yeah, please.
Oh, I think we lost Hai. I don't know where he went. Can't see him now.
Yes, I saw that he just, he disappeared.
It's the book. I was talking about my book.
Get him away.
I shouldn't have done that.
But I actually have a question of my own though. I really am curious, Tayo, because we're living in a world where there's lots of, as you say, differences, right? And even to share personally, I was just reflecting on my last few years. 5 years ago, I don't know if you've seen my LinkedIn post. It was something that went viral, and because I was just being vulnerable and sharing that 5 years ago, I was rejected after like many rounds of interviews. It was a different perspective that they had. Like they just thought I was an introvert. I was very conservative. I might not fit the culture where they were looking for very big personalities and extroverts, right? but they judge very quickly. And then if you look at where I am 5 years now, I'm giving talks, I'm like hosting sessions, doing my own podcast, writing books and stuff as well. So I'm just wondering, how do you deal with differences? If there is a culture where people are not very open to change, how do you go about to bring about change?
That's a great question. I had the other problem. I had to suppress parts of myself because it's like, you're too much, you're too this, you're too that. And I remember getting 85 plus job rejections after college, and then I got fired twice, all before, the career I had. And whenever I work with companies, I always do an assessment. That's the first thing I do. And that's what any consultant would do. But what I'm always looking for is I look for what makes people feel like themselves and what they feel like is missing in order to bring their whole selves to work. And a lot of times it looks like what you're describing. Some people confuse an extroverted behavior for interest, and some people misunderstand an introverted behavior for reflection, and don't understand rather that it's reflection and it's actually still serving the company. And I'm always trying to figure out different ways to, based on the company culture and the industry, to get more voices involved. So that's the first thing with the assessment. But I'm also always trying to highlight, gaps. And so whenever I talk to CEO and executive, I say, hey, this is where you say you want the company to be. This is where the company is now. If we try these, productivity will improve here. So it's always an assessment and an audit, and that's what I encourage for anyone. And in my focus groups and interviews, I ask questions in in-depth formats, and based on my I guess years of experience studying people, I'm able to extrapolate different things, and then I include that in reports, and then we work towards that because I work with companies on a long-term basis. So yeah.
Love that. Thank you, Tayo. I feel like we should do a different session as well, because we can go on, and there's a lot of good things that you can share too. But I just saw two questions that came in from the audience, and they have specific ones. One of them to Hai, because Hai, you disappeared for a while and you were wondering where you were. Okay.
Sorry, I had a cybersecurity issue. My laptop ran out of batteries.
All good. You have been missed.
We noticed you're gone.
Yeah, good to have you back. And I'm just going to quickly read out the two questions, Hai, and you see if you can attempt to address them as concisely as you can, because they are big questions.
Is Hai frozen?
Yeah.
I think
No.
Yeah.
At a crucial moment. This is so much about technology.
Hi.
Okay, guys. Business continuity plan. If Hai is not able to answer your questions now, we'll get him to answer it later on, and we'll mail it out together with the recording of the session. Okay, so y'all can catch up on that. Thanks for your questions, Peter and Jacob.
Thank you.
Oh, Jacob's asking Tayo to do a dance. That's random.
He's probably seen my Instagram. That's probably what happened.
Really? Okay. Well, you can do a bit of dance to end the session. No.
This is.
Yeah, come on.
Well, what are we doing? What is this? We need to get Tremaine's book. Everybody should get Tremaine's book.
Okay, all right. So I think that's it. We really had a great time today. Honestly, I really enjoyed this session. It's a wonderful way to do a global book club, to meet, you guys from the US, us in Australia, and I think that our audience, our listeners, are actually joining us from like Singapore, Malaysia, New Zealand, wow, like all over the world. So it's really exciting. So Carmen, do you have any last words to end off the session? Are we gonna do this again?
I definitely do. I enjoyed the conversation. I mean, these were good topics, important topics, not spoken enough, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. I think RSA for the first time this year had factor, and that's good that we have this kind of conversation, cybersecurity. But definitely, let's continue having these.
Sorry guys, I dropped out again.
Oh, hi, are you back?
There he is.
Yeah, so my laptop really died. I'm using my mobile phone now.
Gotcha.
That's dedication.
That's the business continuity plan.
I,
Oh, there
no,
you
we
go.
already came up with a business continuity plan. But are you still good to maybe do you want to share? We are going to wrap off, and then we're thinking of in terms of your answers, we'll get that with you offline, and then we will distribute that to the listeners. Or do you have
Yeah, sure.
something quick to share?
I've got about 8 minutes left until my next meeting, so I'm good for another 5 minutes or so.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me check. I think the audience are still hanging around. Yes. So do you want to give it a crack now and share your answers to the two questions they raised?
Sure.
How should cybersecurity and technology SaaS consultants successfully approach government decision makers whom are naturally technophobes?
Right. Okay. I mean that's a great question. I think governments are now understanding that cyber is actually a business problem. I think the Prime Minister of Australia announced about 4 weeks ago that Australia was under cyber attack. It obviously has been a challenge in the past to get governments to understand that that cyber is actually a capability. But I think now with the Premier of South Australia, Stephen Marshall, leading the way in terms of having that foresight that cyber is a business problem that does impact the economy and that we can actually deliver cyber capability, governments now are actually open to having these discussions, because I think governments have realised that there is an economic business impact to cyber. One way in Australia particularly is that members of parliament are approachable. They've got electoral offices, and so you can start by contacting them if you're not getting much traction with the department. But many state organisations have an Office of Cybersecurity, which is a starting point, and there's also the Australian Cyber Security Centre, and also my organisation, the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre, that can actually help facilitate some of those conversations with government organisations.
That's great. And what about like data sovereignty and because there's so many privacy regulations these days, what are the challenges on data sovereignty and how maybe international companies are doing to address these issues? If you can share a few tips for them.
Sure. Well, look, the issue with data sovereignty will actually vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So in Western Australia, for example, the topic of data sovereignty was raised a few times, but I could actually never track down the official law or legislation or policy that actually dealt with data sovereignty. But there are principles in Australia, for example, the Australian privacy principles and the privacy acts that do govern the use of personally identifiable information. So I think that aspect is that it really depends on your jurisdiction. You do need to actually look at the relevant laws and legislation that apply to your jurisdiction, and then look at the different options available. I mean, encryption is a great way to actually protect data and ensure that wherever your data is, it can be secure. Make sure the data is encrypted in transit and at rest is always a good start.
All right, that's fantastic. So thank you, Hai. I know you really gave it a good crack at it, and really appreciate you sharing your insights and persevering to make it through all the way to the end. So I think that wraps up nicely our Cyber Risk Leaders Book Club session. Once again, thank you so much, Rockson and Hai Tran, and my lovely co-host, Carmen Marsh. I really enjoy doing this with you. So, thank you, everyone. We'll see you all again sometime. Thank you to all our listeners as well for joining in, and look forward to see you on the next one. Take care, everyone.
Have a great day, evening.
Great. Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye.